Welcome back from the break. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. A massive mid-air tragedy was averted on Wednesday thanks to the pilot's quick thinking. The Delhi-Srinagar Indigo flight 6C2142 was caught in a sudden hailstorm on the 21st of May. The pilot, who alarmed the ATC about the turbulence, requested Lahore ATC to land, but the request was rejected. On board the flight were 227 passengers, including 5 Trinamool Congress MPs who were visiting Srinagar to meet victims of Pakistan shelling. The pilot, after seeing his request rejected, proceeded to Srinagar and landed the aircraft. The pilot also attempted to return back but couldn't due to being close to the thunderstorm cloud. Images after landing and videos during the turbulence showed the immense air scare and the tragedy averted. Images of the plane also show the flight's nose, which was broken. The fact that the pilot proceeded towards Srinagar using the shortest route shows his heroic act. And actually the fact that he made the aircraft land also shows immense skill and fortitude even at a turbulent time. Joining us to discuss this further is Bhashwati Mukherjee, former diplomat. Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director India Foundation, is live with us. Air Vice Marshal Kapil Kak, former senior officer of the Indian Air Force, is live with us. Sumit Peer, political commentator, is also joining the broadcast live. Let me make a start with you first. Air Vice Marshal Kak, what do you make of this absolute shocker? The fact that even in a time of turbulence, how shocking is it that Pakistan ATC would not allow this pilot to use their airspace just to avoid that rough patch? They risked these people on board this Indigo flight losing their lives. Thankfully, that didn't happen, thanks to the the presence of mind of the pilot and obviously certain skills that he showed to land the aircraft in this bad weather. But what does this really say of the Pakistani ATC and leadership's mindset?
Well, it's very unfortunate that this has happened just 48 hours ago, and we still haven't wound down Op Sindhu. It's only a pause. And the relationship between the two countries being what it is, it didn't matter a whit insofar as the safety of 227 civilians, including 5 members of parliament, was concerned. Pakistan should have, the ATC have instructions over the last 50 years or more, as far as I'm aware. Our side is also the Pakistani side, that this is a narrow corridor in which the geographies of both countries kind of coalesce, and it just so happens that these type of clouds at one time, I just want to clarify, as we are talking now, this happened 48 hours before, and at this point of time when I talk to you, 2,500 civil aviation aircraft are flying all over India, from Kargil to Kanyakumari and Jorhat to Jamnagar. See the scale and magnitude of civil aviation activity, and the fact that the meteorological, geographical combo in a tropical country like ours, particularly during the months of May and June, are hugely adverse for safe flying, because these thunderstorms are very, very common. That's why I took the figure of 2,500 flights actually flying right now as we are talking. Second point is, yes, we have done it in the past. This is nothing new. It is just, I'm not making an excuse for Pakistan. It's absolutely horrid, absolutely inescapable and inhumane to not allow a civilian aircraft. It was a military aircraft, I can understand. I have been on a combat aircraft at 48,000 feet on my back. That's also happened because one was in a thunderstorm. But here, it's a civilian aircraft. And for the sake of compassion, for the sake of humaneness, the ATC should have followed the standard operating procedure of last half a century in allowing airspace to be accommodated for an aircraft which is in distress of the kind the Airbus 321 of the Indigo airline was in 48 hours ago at this point of time. It is also, pilot has of course done a great job, having got into this very, very grim situation. Just for your viewers, every civilian aircraft has a weather radar. It's a color-coded radar, which has a pencil beam. In the sense, a beam is transmitted from the aircraft to the region around, and what comes back is an indication of what kind of a gradient of precipitation lies around the aircraft. I think, it's my view, pilot has done a great job in landing this aircraft with such acute, very, very severe damage to the nose, but discretion demands that you get nowhere near a thunderstorm of this nature, because it is also the duty of the crew to understand there are 227 human beings on board. So well before the storm comes, there are enough warnings of that kind. Maybe the pilot didn't have experience. I'm perhaps talking prematurely, because it's only a question of a detailed, specific court of inquiry by the DGCA, which will actually ascribe blame where it lies. But in this situation, diplomatically, the blame lies squarely on Pakistan, because we would have lost this aircraft. I can't imagine with what face Pakistan would have seen itself in the world, having been the cause of such a human tragedy. But God has been kind, pilot has done a good job, and the aircraft has been landed safely at Srinagar after going through this horrible storm.
Yes, indeed. Ambassador Bashwati Mukherjee, nothing surprises us now about the Pakistanis. But is this a new low for Pakistan? The fact that this request, even in emergency, like the one on board this Delhi-Srinagar Indigo flight had, for it to be denied in the manner that it was?
Absolutely. It was totally inhumane and against the established convention, as Air Marshal Kark just informed us, that for the last 50 years, it is quite normal for civilian aircraft facing an emergency situation, even when airspace has been closed, to allow temporary entry into airspace so as to escape a catastrophic failure, engine failure, catastrophic failure, which would result in the loss of 227 passengers plus crew, of which I'm told there were 5 members of the Trinamool Congress on that flight. Moreover, Pakistan should consider that the same thing can happen tomorrow to a Pakistani civilian aircraft, because as Marshal Kark explained, this is the time of the year when these thunderstorms are very severe and very sudden. 2 days ago, I remember there was absolutely no warning of a thunderstorm when Delhi was hit with a catastrophic hailstorm 2 days ago between 8 and 9 p.m. We had not received a yellow alert till 7 minutes before 8 p.m. on my phone from the meteorological department. The hailstones which fell, I was in central Delhi at that time, were enormous and caused huge damage, including to cars. So if this hailstorm, a thunderstorm activity was very sudden, very unexpected, if it happened to an Indigo 2 days ago, it could very well happen to a Pakistani civilian aircraft 2 days from now. And I am confident that in such a situation, our authorities, ATC, would allow a civilian aircraft, because we don't have, first of all, this kind of nonchalant attitude towards civilians, because after all, one has to remember that in Pahalgam, those who were executed in front of their wives and close ones were all civilians. They were not military people in uniform. They were civilians picked out for their religion, and because they were in Pahalgam at the wrong time, at the wrong place, according to the terrorists. So when you kill civilians, when you slaughter them, when you execute civilians, you show complete disregard for international humanitarian law. Similarly, in this incident, Pakistan has shown complete disregard for lives of civilians and for international humanitarian law. And let us also remember, Uday, that they also tried to use their own civilian aircraft as shields to prevent our Air Force from tackling the drones and missiles that were being lobbed at us by utilizing civilian aircraft in their airspace thinking that that will deter us, or that we will by mistake bring down a Pakistani civilian aircraft and then the entire world will point fingers at us, which by the grace of God did not happen, which means that such people have no compunctions either in using their own civilians, and they have no compunctions with the death of civilians from other countries, particularly the country that they love to hate so much, which is my motherland, India.
Okay, let me in fact also join Major General Katoch at this point. Major General Katoch, the fact of course very clearly is that Pakistan has no humanity. This is something everyone knew all along. If a country perpetrates terror and funds terror as a state policy, that shows how humane they are. But in this case, refusing such a permission, realizing that an aircraft was in trouble, obviously it was an SOS sent out by the pilot, saying no. What really has to be in their heart, in their beings, for them to do such a thing? Major General Katoch.
Thank you, Uday. Uday, I have come down to the conclusion that nothing which Pakistan does will surprise me anymore. For a very long time, for many years, I used to think that they have, slipped to the lowest depths possible. And then they surprised me by going down even further. And when this chap, their chief elevates himself to a field marshal, I thought, they have really hit the pits. And then they refused permission to a civil airlines in distress. I think this is the pits, but then I'm wrong again. You see, they can even go further down. There's no limit. This country has reduced itself to a level which is totally unimaginable. If there were two warring countries in war and a civilian aircraft is in that situation, they will allow that civilian aircraft to land. Warring countries allow it. And here is a country which, just disregarded all conventions. I think it is absolutely unforgivable and inexcusable. And people from their side, they should be held to account. It's not just a question of humanity. There are certain principles, there are norms, there are etiquettes, there are ways to do things. And Pakistan stands out by disregarding every single convention of humanity. And I think that's a crying shame. The ambassador, of course, spoke about Pahalgam. I mean, if a country could actually reduce itself to doing that, it throws open the possibility that they are prepared to do anything else. Which is why I am very firmly of the opinion that this is the country by which we can have no relationship with. It is a hostile country. It is an enemy country. And I think that is the way we have to, not just the government of India. I think the people of India also need to deal with them in that same manner. They are a worthless lot of people there, and we have to treat them that way. They are best ignored. And I think next time, if any need of that comes, if they require any help, I'm certain India will give it. I've got absolutely no doubts, regardless of the state of our relationship. But I don't think we should expect anything from that country. People who have, as a group, as a country, it is not simply the military leadership. It is the entire country now. They are on that path. They are on the path to self-destruction. And if that is the path they choose, well, who are we to stop them? Uday.
Yes, indeed. Let me, in fact, also, go back across to Air Vice Marshal Kak at this point. Air Vice Marshal Kak, as we were just saying that Pakistan hits a new low every day. But speaking about the aviation, we all remember how they used civilian aircrafts as human shields. Ambassador Mukherjee just referred to that in her statement as well. Civilian aircrafts being used as shields to try and fox the Indian Air Force, to try and make it difficult for precise strikes, as far as our drones and missiles are concerned. Who does this? And God forbid if we had struck one of those aircrafts, although we didn't and we wouldn't have. But if we had, we can imagine what the Pakistanis and what the world would have done. But yet no one in the world chastises them for actually using civilian aircrafts as human shields. Air Vice Marshal Kak.
Uday, I think what you said and what has been mentioned by Ambassador Baswati before, yes, this was a despicable act by the Pakistanis to use civilian aircraft and airliners as a shield. But as has been demonstrated so accurately and so acutely, the Indian airspace managers who are also looking into the Pakistani airspace would not have fallen for this bait. And the precision with which we managed this entire force application over a 4-day period would suggest to the average viewer of your channel that we would never, under any circumstances, have shot down an airliner, even if it meant a certain compromise with our military success. But I want to bring the viewers and yourself back to what this issue is. And here I have two suggestions. That we are in a season of what is called tropical storms. And we have another 45 days to go before the monsoons get to India and the tropical storms reduce in intensity. I would like to suggest that since the NSAs of India and Pakistan are in touch, Mr. Ajit Doval and Mr. Asim Khan from the other side, and we also have continuous contact between the Director Generals of Military Aviation operations on both sides, I think it would be well worth preventing the incident of the kind which took place 48 hours ago. Because who knows, you may have another aircraft coming close to another storm and not far from the Pakistan boundary. What do we do then? So I think we should have, even in the midst of the tense relationship, on the basis of international humanitarian law, on the basis of humane conditions of flight and management of safety of the passengers, we should have some kind of an agreement that airspace of either side should be freely usable. Instructions must go down to the wire. The third point, I think we are also forgetting that we have an eastern part of India, and I have experience of going through the storms there, and they're called Kal Baisakhi in the month of April. Chota Nagpur, Orissa, West Bengal. Much more severe thunderstorms and hailstorms than the one the Airbus one went through 48 hours ago. So we should have a similar understanding with Bangladesh, if there isn't one already, that should there be a reason for our aircraft to overfly Bangladesh airspace, there should be a standard operating procedure that their aircraft as well as our aircraft on missions which are basically civilian traffic, they should be allowed to get into each other's space should such a storm present itself suddenly before the pilots. Uday.
Okay, let me in fact also join Sumit Peer, now political commentator, who's joined us on the broadcast finally. Sumit, we were discussing, of course, about this, despicable move by Pakistan to deny permission. We all saw those horrific videos on board that flight, so much turbulence. The nose also was damaged as a result of the adverse weather. Thank God for that pilot who actually managed to land this flight safely and ensure no injuries, yet alone any other casualties on board that aircraft. But this emerged that could have been avoided had Pakistan just shown a bit of humanity. But is that asking for too much?
Uday, thank you for having me on your show. In fact, my apologies. I got stuck in traffic. I could not reach on time. Sincere apologies for that. You see, Uday, the problem here is that you are talking to a country which is run by radicals and jihadis. That is the Hindu hatred is in their mind. How will they look at that plate? 227 kafir baithe hain isme. That is the first thing that will cross through their mind. That is the mentality of the place what you are talking about. Second thing is, I have to be direct with you. Indian Air Force has given them such a beating. Itna mara hai, itna peeta hai. Even they are scared with the commercial airline today. They are thinking if the commercial airline mein pata nahi hai kya karte, kaun sa rocket mar de, which tower will fall, and that is the second thing. Third thing is even these SOS calls are filtered through GHQ, Rawalpindi and ISPR. So ISPR will say, does it suit our narrative and all? And fundamentally, a mad mullah Munir will give an approval ke haan de do ya nahi de do. Though there is an international convention, because if there's we have these air corridors. If your corridor has a problem, there's another adjacent corridor. You go into that, and there's an international alliance. There's an International Aviation Authority which gives you the right and liberty to do that. So by that logic, as long as Pakistan is not an isolated island, it has to give that thing to the Indian aircraft. It is not your discretion, because the weather is bad. We have asked you to pass through your corridor to avoid the hailstorm. It is not your option. You have to give that access. Still, you chose not to give because you wanted possibly this disaster to happen to India. You wanted 227 Indians possibly to die. You wanted a disaster to happen. Then you would create a tamasha. Then of course that will be attributed to Prime Minister Modi because of hostilities with Pakistan, because aircraft could not be diverted, and because of that we lost so many lives. It is because of Modi, and then the political tamasha would have started. All these people will have started coming up who have already started questioning the effectivity of Operation Sindoor. But this will happen. This also tells you one thing. Why don't we go and complain to that International Aviation Authority that this is what Pakistan has violated the basic norms? Why don't we use our embassies to go and talk to every country and now bring in a point? Should Pakistan airspace be ever used by any airline? Because how do you trust them? If they can do this to India, tomorrow they can do this to you. How do you trust the Pakistanis? In a civilized world, we all go by norms. We all go by ethics. If Pakistan is ready to even let go the basic ethics, let this known to the world. And then we should block the airspace for all their jets, and we should have a stated policy. If a situation like this prevails, do we want to give space to the Pakistani aircraft or not? It should not be a decision then. If we have a policy, yes, we will respect and we'll give, let us give it. If we have a policy, no, we don't want to give it, declare it now. No, we'll not give it. So tomorrow, if there's a situation like this, we are not giving any space. It's a quite pro quo. And for our safety, we have to also find alternate routes. We have to find routes which are more safer. If there's a need of a evacuation or emergency landing or whatever, there's an airport nearby. Logically speaking,
okay.
If Lahore was 25 kilometers.
I'm beginning to run out of time. Sumit Peer, let me quickly draw you in here. Sumit, as far beg your pardon, Ambassador Mukherjee, as far as, of course, now the world is concerned, should they take note of this? As I was saying earlier, Vice Marshal Kakte is saying, of course, that India would have, been very, very clear not to, come anywhere near those civilian aircrafts, and that's exactly what happened. But shouldn't the world take note of that, of what Pakistan was trying? If the world, would have taken note, had there been a catastrophe, shouldn't they take note also of this development, that who was causing that almost catastrophe? It was Pakistan. During Operation Sindoor, with those civilian aircrafts as human shields, and now with this aircraft as well, the civilian aircraft which was carrying members of parliament, and who knows if foreign nationals were also on that plane. After all, it was headed to the holiday destination of Jammu and Kashmir.
There are two organizations which are relevant in this context. One is ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, and the other, of course, is the UN Security Council. In both cases, Pakistan can be held guilty of violating international humanitarian law, as I said. In fact, they are bound to give permission, as Sumit correctly pointed out. The approval is almost automatic. When a civilian plane is in trouble and is requesting on an emergency basis to use airspace on a purely temporary basis, there's no question of it being an enemy military aircraft.
Yes.
The approval is normally automatic. That they did not do so, unfortunately, would give most of us the impression that they would have liked a civil aviation disaster. That's my first point. Secondly, as far as using civilian aircraft, their own civilian aircraft, as a shield to force our Air Force into other maneuvers, as Air Marshal correctly pointed out, that again is against humanitarian law.
Absolutely. The world must take note of that. We run out of time. Major General Katot, 30 seconds to you. Major General Katot, 30 seconds to you.
Yeah, very quickly, Uday, I think Pakistan missed an opportunity, Had they allowed that plane to land, my God, they would have got such brownie points. I mean, how could they be so stupid? I really cannot understand. So, I think, ultimately, the only thing I'll say, Pakistan will be Pakistan.
Yes.
A leopard won't change its spots, and we can't change Pakistan.
Okay. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this broadcast.